Day something? First of all, who the fuck is watching these videos? I've only shared the first video with 2 people and now it's got like 14 views. Who are you? Yeah. Whatever. Hi. I'm doing these for myself. But and maybe it's the same person watching over and over. Are you addicted? You like my face, huh? Don't you? Yeah. But it doesn't matter. Because I am doing them for me. Letting my thought flow with the perspective on me. It feels useful. I started this from a place of heartbreak, and I am now over that, primarily because it's over. It was like halfway over before, and now it's over. I don't really understand, but that's okay. What I do think I understand is how unique my perspective is on how easy love is. And I understand cultures that have arranged marriages and things like that. I also understand our culture, and I'm not saying one is better or one is worse. I feel like if we all prioritized God, or whatever you want to call it, above our own self-concerns without reservation, even in the slightest, then we would all be filled with the one love. And we would all be willing to die for it in the egoic sense of the word die. We would all be willing to change and allow ourselves to be washed away. And that means we wouldn't really have to go about searching for the right person, the perfect person, because everybody's the right person. Everybody's the perfect person. Everybody's the same. Everybody deep down wants and needs the same thing. Everybody suffers and they want to not suffer. Everybody has the potential for happiness and they want to be happy. And both of those conditions are met fundamentally through a relationship between self and not self. Whatever that means to you, whatever that means to me. And I don't mean self to all the individual not selves. I mean the infinitesimally small to the infinitely large. I mean the self to God. I mean the self to the universe. I mean the self to the higher self. I mean the lower consciousness to the higher consciousness. I mean ego to world. Until aliens come, and then the world is too small suddenly. But for now, the world's pretty much all we know, so it is kind of negligible if you take a scientific perspective. I mean, it's all at this point. It's all just how people define it for themselves, and it doesn't matter how people define it. It matters how they experience it. Conceptually defining it is very different from living it. There's a quote from Ansari of Herat, who was a perhaps 14th century Sufi philosopher. Probably getting the years wrong. He said, "Would you embark on the pilgrimage of love? If so, thou must make thyself as humble as ash." I probably butchered the quote. Humble, though, as ash. That's something that has always meant embracing the darkest parts of ourselves, the most insane parts of ourselves, the most evil parts of ourselves, the stupidest parts of ourselves, the most egoic parts of ourselves, and not embracing it like, oh, they're so great and lovely, we should let them continue. More like embracing it like, yeah, they exist. And with the connection and the one love grounding us, supporting us, giving us a rock to stand on, metaphorically, all mediocrity can be seen clearly, can be acknowledged and embraced, and can be allowed to change. And that's the only real love that exists. I don't think other types of love deserve the name. Ultimately, those other types are just reflections of this principle. Which is why those other types of loves, for example, friendship and romantic love and family love, they are mirrors for us to see ourselves. And when somebody is not ready to see themselves, they will react with violence. If they are ready to see themselves, then they might react a bit crazily, a bit neurotically, a bit all over the place. But ultimately, they will let go of it all and grow. I think the other types of love really don't deserve the name when they lull either party into sleep so that their connection to the one love is dulled, and so that they do not feel the need to change, so that their vision can remain foggy and blurred. It is life's highest good and best pleasure and best source of strength and best empowerment for loving others, all others, to prioritize the one love over the self. Now, to be clear, I am not making any kind of judgment on this girl who I was just dealing with. I don't know what she's going through. She's the most beautifully in tune with the one love person that I have ever met. Sure, I can identify some weak spots. It's not a pedestal I'm putting her on, nor a claim of perfection. Nor am I wanting to jump to the conclusion that she is as humble as Ash, because she might not be. I think if she were as humble as Ash, things would have been different. It would have turned out different. And I'm not making any claims from myself either. If I were as humble as Ash, things would have been different. Things would have turned out different. The only claim I will make about myself is that I don't care about anything other than becoming humble as Ash. Not a thing. And that's because that's for no reason. That just is. By some miracle. Because I have discovered intimately that it is the highest good, beyond words. That's the real reason. And then there's a bunch of excuses. Chief of which is that I'm trying to write about how to become as humble as Ash, and I can't do that unless I become as humble as Ash. So I've trapped myself. And that's partly what made my end of this whole relationship hard. It's because I wasn't as humble as Ash yet. If I were as humble as Ash, I would be confident in a way that I wasn't. I was scared. There is a divine confidence that comes from being free of sin. There is a psychological freedom from anxiety that comes from becoming insane. Those are two different ways of putting the same idea. Saint Teresa of Avila would say that objective perfection is not obtainable for humans, but there is a sort of relative perfection which comes from union with God. Jesus take the wheel type shit. and then the feeling of existence is perfect, even if the objective results are not perfect. So yeah, practically speaking, relationships are pretty damn easy once you have experienced one and you know what to do. But not unless the one primary mission, the one love, dominates. If it truly does, then relationships become very easy. So I'm probably going to keep doing these little diary entries. But this might be the last time that I talk about, well, probably not. But I'm over this one girl. I'm glad that she came into my life. She swooped in and fucked me up for a little bit. And she seemed perfect, and it was like coming face to face with God. Like she was a goddess, and I crashed into her like water on rock. And I think she felt like I was putting on her she felt it as me putting her on a pedestal. And that was a reflection of my lack of humility. If I were truly as humble as Ash, she wouldn't have felt like I was putting her on a pedestal. But I was pretty damn humble, which is why she did feel like it was me putting her on a pedestal, because I was only willing to see and express my faults, and only willing to see perfection in her. Which is generally a good strategy in life. To learn from everything and everyone, to see everybody as an enlightened being, to see the divinity within everybody. And to put yourself lower than even the smallest bug. I think if she weren't moving, then maybe we would have come to some kind of synthesis and shared journey. But as it was, there was a distance between us that we could never overcome, and we never merged. Speaking like that feels incorrect, because the only experience I have access to is my own. I never merged. I can hypothesize about the objective we. Just like I can hypothesize about the objective God, and what it means, and what its concept is, and how to define it. But ultimately, all I have is an experience, a happening, a process that's always brand new, that always deserves surrendering to. And all I can say about this experience is that I was not unified, I was still split in two. And that I learned a lot. And I now feel more merged with the not self than I did before. May all of our experiences help direct us towards this union. We can hypothesize all we want about what's actually out there beyond the self. We can divide the not self up into all sorts of different concepts, including other people and not people, and things and events and times and spaces and blah blah blah, feelings, thoughts, blah blah blah. But ultimately, none of that matters. No matter what it is or is not, the fundamental process the unspeakable center of spirituality and life is to merge the self with the not self. that can happen in the upwards direction or the downwards direction, through the self becoming the not self, or through the not self becoming the self. Those two directions, in my eyes, can explain the differences between lots of the different religions and philosophies. Whether we become zero or whether the infinite becomes us. Doesn't matter. Both avenues are two sides of the same coin. The unknown absolute can take the form of the metaphysical infinity or the metaphysical zero. And because both are beyond our comprehension in unimaginable ways, literally beyond our comprehension, to our experience they are the same. O unknown absolute, thou art everywhere. Thou art within the words that I am speaking, and the I which pretends to exist. How can we stay loyal to whatever the fuck you are? And do you mind terribly about the fact that human language cannot seem to help but personify you? Some people seem to terribly mind. Perhaps it means that the God complex is inescapable. Because any attempt from the feeling of small self to relate to the not self has to come in a me, you format. Me, that. But talking to that is like not the same. It's talking to somebody else about that book. And I say that book, you know that I'm talking about that book, and you also know that I'm not talking to the book, because Because if I were talking to the book, I would say you. You, book. Hello, book. You are orange, tan, and white. And you have suffered through this long enough. So, whoever the fuck you are, cheers.